How many producers does it take to make a movie? Well, if you read Blake Lively's filing with the PGA for It Ends With Us, you might think just one, really. Hi everyone, welcome back. As you may have guessed, we'll be going over that Producers Guild of America letter of Blake Lively's today, and as a producer myself of over 30 years, I have thoughts on all of that. And I've been getting lots of questions about that and terribly slow and late getting back to you to respond, but here we are, and I've been dying to talk to you about it. And also just in general, like, what are all those other producers doing, especially like in this case when it seems like Blake did it all. So we'll go over that, and we'll also just kind of look at some of the legal side too, you know, what might factor into it, because that's been a hot topic of discussion too. But we'll be using this letter as mostly a springboard for talking about what producers actually do on a set and what they may or may not do. And what stuff in this letter is bogus, or what's normal, what's not normal. It's always a good question on this case. And I'll probably talk a little about what I think was going on behind the scenes. Certainly, since all the depositions have come out, there's a bigger picture of what actually kind of went on set. And so I'll have to try to compare a bit between what Alex Saks was doing, or Jamey Heath, as those are the three PGA credited producers. And what the heck is the PGA anyway, the Producers Guild? What's the big deal with that stamp, and how does any of that really matter? And I'm recording this on Oscars night, so that's actually probably most people's biggest draw of wanting that stamp. And if you've been following this channel, thanks so much for your patience as I continue to complain about not getting these out sooner. And health is settling in, I think, so we can do this a little faster, but my tech skills are not. So it's going to have to be rough. And I'll quit apologizing for that, and who knows how much we'll get to today, because we just spent another like 4 hours fighting with ChatGPT as I try to remember how you record. So, and why things aren't looking right on this screen. Anyhow, I'm looking forward to doing the stuff that I do know, which is talking about producing and productions and the entertainment industry and all those fun things. Hopefully, however far we get by the end of this, you'll have some insight onto some of the questions about producing and what's going on set, and what it means behind some of this filing, and will it impact the case? We'll see, because we're hoping to hear lots of stuff this coming week, and I hope to be here with you quite regularly. And I'd love it if you could subscribe and perhaps like this if you find it worthwhile. Okay, so before we get into the letter itself, I thought it might be just nice to be reminded of Wayfarer's position on this letter from their initial complaint. I looked it up again before doing this, and I forgot how well it was written, and their feelings are quite clear here. So we have, starts with, oh, I've managed to get it on the screen. Sorry, it's not bigger. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, Lively demanded, again, with extortionate threats, that Baldoni Heath and other producers and department heads send letters to the PGA in support of her certification for the PGA mark, despite unanimous recognition of the absurdity and the unmistakably extortionate threats. Sony and other parties, despite being adamant not to support Lively's demand for the unentitled mark, ultimately acquiesced and submitted letters of support. Okay, I'm just curious if I wish we could see other people's, you know, the crew that submitted letters, what if we could know how much their arms were twisted. I think Alex Saks was the one who approached all of them. Okay, so next we have, however, Wayfarer and Baldoni firmly resisted because Lively did not perform the duties of a producer and therefore did not merit the PGA mark, a distinction highly valued and taken seriously within the industry. Wayfarer and Baldoni refused to devalue the contributions of actual producers on the film and elsewhere who merited the mark and were unwilling to misrepresent Lively's contributions to the film. Having been forced in the face of extortionate threats to concede to Lively's every demand to thus far, they believed it would be dishonest, unethical, and unjust to producers who rightfully earned the mark to falsely represent to the PGA that Lively had fulfilled the requisite producing responsibilities. Asking that they lie on her behalf was the final straw, or so they thought. In response, I love this part, Lively instructed Sony to tell Wayfarer and Baldoni that any goodwill left between us is done. I remember reading that in the complaint the first time through, and it made me laugh out loud. Like, when was there last a shred of goodwill? That was just such a funny thing to say. Anyway, I would like to know where that shred of goodwill was that was left, that was being threatened here. Anyway, eventually, in the face of persistent threats and extortion, Wayfarer and Baldoni were left with little choice but to draft and sign a letter of support on Lively's behalf, but not before Heath sent an email to Wayfarer's attorneys documenting that he and Baldoni were signing the letter under duress. Okay, so yeah, it struck me that it's not just about the other producers on the set here, whereas a lot of Lively's complaints in the end, or her status, her position, sorry, language, Lively's position there at the end, when you read some of these depositions, and particularly a lot of the stuff that Ryan said, definitely topic for its own episode, but is about how she couldn't stand beside these other people taking credit for her work. And whereas really the issue that Wayfarer is taking here is not just for which individual producers on this production deserved a credit, but kind of trying to honor what that means for other producers who might, on other movies. It kind of devalues the point of the whole mark to begin with, to try to show something. Okay, and just briefly, in terms of what is the Producers Guild and this darn mark, and why does it matter? Well, in some ways it doesn't really. It's mostly, although I think, like I mentioned, if you were to be nominated for the Oscars and everyone's fighting over, because there used to be there'd be 10 producers traipsing on up there for their best picture award. And I think the industry just got to the point of wanting to organize something that said, these are the people who actually were producing and carried out their roles from, they try to cover from development through to post and post and marketing and distribution and everything. Well, not doing distribution, but anyway, being part of the film from start to finish. They're trying to separate those real producers out from people that might get the credit for other reasons, and they also limit it to, I think it's just 3. So when you go into, when the production files for producer marks, they have to limit it to 3, and it's and probably bigger than that really is for just recognition in the industry, people recognizing your credentials if you're going to do other productions and other work, that at least you've been recognized as being someone who actually did those functions on the production that's in your credits. And so yeah, so that mark is what signifies that. Hopefully I've explained a little. Okay, so we'll get into the letter, because basically she does end up outlining a bunch of the different parts of the production that you're supposed to cover in order to qualify. And although I would argue that I don't think Alex Saks was there as much as would be required, really, but I guess it's enough for this particular mark and for the Producers Guild. And oh yeah, I don't think I mentioned, this is an old tired brain, that it's not like it's a union. It's just a professional organization, so you don't have to be a member, or and it's not, your films can still be nominated for Oscars if you're a member or not. And so it's not like the DGA or the WGA or IATSE or Teamsters, which are all organized unions that have collective agreements. And because the producer is the one that is the employer, or at least the producer that's the production company in this case. Boy, I'm making it more confusing. So yeah, it's not like it grants you all these rights or protections. It's really just a professional thing you can use for networking, and you pay a fee to join, and you have to have some credits and qualify to join. And yeah, so that's it. And that's the difference between it and all the other labor unions, that if it's a union set, you are hiring people represented from each of the unions, and but Producers Guild is a whole different bandwagon. Is that a word? Anyway, a whole different kettle of fish. Okay, here we go, and we'll take a look at the letter. Okay, and apologies if I can't figure out, I couldn't figure out how to center this any better or make me smaller or bigger. We would never get here. It already was the 3 or 4 hour fight with ChatGPT. And I know I shouldn't go on about this, but I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with technology and my brain getting in the way. And yeah, I need a person to help with this stuff. Okay, here we go. Hopefully you can read some of this. Producers Guild, dear Producers Guild of America. Okay, I'm writing you with meaningful urgency. Oh, and don't we all kind of think that probably Ryan wrote a lot of this, like everything? It's my guess. It's very verbose too. Okay, so I'm writing you with meaningful urgency and also respect. That's the suck up portion that everyone does. I'm sorry, but I'm asking for your attention to this in a crunched time period. I'm positive you have matters much more significant than this, but I bare my heart to you, asking for you to take a look at my note. As this film and my work in it off camera means more to me than anything I've done in my 20-year career. Okay. First, I just want to say I don't doubt that this is what she really wanted and means the most to her. So I guess that part we could say is honest. Let's give credit where credit is due, even though this is completely sucky and a weird, overdone opening, and whether or not she should have done any of that work off camera is the main issue. But and I had we are going to get into separate episodes on her attempts at producing and all that kind of thing of setting up productions. But for now, we're sticking to this. Okay, there's been a recent update change with regard to my official role in the upcoming film. It ends with us releasing August 9th. Just a few days ago, I was officially granted the title of producer. After a year and a half of asking and working tirelessly to prove the validity of that title, I've produced every moment of this film from pre-production through production into post and now into marketing and worldwide release. I'm grateful that the contract has now been revised to reflect the immense work that I put in. Okay, we all know that some of us believe, allegedly, in our opinion, that the change in the contract reflects some rather extortionist attempts and success at that. In my opinion, I don't doubt that she was involved in a lot of things, because she was. So, I did want to say, though, that I don't understand the purpose of saying after a year and a half of asking and working tirelessly to prove the validity of that title. Just kind of weird. I don't know if PGA cares how long she'd been asking. And this is another, I probably won't have so many sidelines to this, but somewhere in the depositions, and I couldn't find it again, despite trying several times weeks ago when I first thought I was doing this, but he did, in the negotiations somewhere, maybe it was that one, that the fully unredacted one that got pulled, and somehow this got pulled back. But I remember in the negotiating with her manager or agent, there was an email or text between them where they were asking for producer credit, and Jamie replied something like, well, we're open to things down the line depending on the involvement in the end, or something like that. And of course, this was after the fact, but reading that now, and when it came out in the depositions, I was just like, oh no, that was the wrong thing to say at the outset. And pretty much, I've got to say, it might have been a little inexperienced to even say that, because it did leave the door open, and of course, someone's going to just try to prove themselves. Yeah. So obviously, a decent person would be able to handle that kind of comment, and maybe be a little more collaborative and cooperative, and yeah, could have taken advantage of that, but obviously didn't unfold well. But I do think, I'm sure the little alarm bells went off of possibility, and all I need to do is show how involved I am. So, not to blame Jamie. I've discovered in this YouTube thing that you can't say anything that might be slightly, it's not even a blame. He's not to blame for anything. It's just a comment on that I can see how Blake would have been encouraged by that, and that I think lots of people, and he will have learned now, to try and phrase those things differently going into it, because if you get someone like a Blake, they'll take it entirely differently. Okay, so she continues. I'm writing to ask for the great honor of receiving the PGA tag. I don't take that lightly. In our household, that's the highest honor in film, so I understand the gravity of the ask. I also understand the absurdity of asking this late. Without the official title of producer, my hands were tied. I couldn't apply when I wanted to. No crew could tick me in the box of producers who should receive the tag when pulled. So that just means, yeah, when they pull people filing, there's like the crew or whoever, the people that get to have a say, tick off boxes of which producers should get the tag on that particular film. So that's what she means by they couldn't tick off the box, because she wouldn't have been listed as a producer. Okay. You granted the PGA tag. Oh, I skipped a part, but who cares? I'm confident that with all my soul that if you saw what I did on the film, you would agree that this mark is, without question, deserved. I'll lay out how we got here below, because I appreciate that this film isn't the way the process normally works. You granted the PGA tag to 2 producers, Saks and Jamey Heath. I'm in full support of their tags. I'm really sick of the word tags. Okay, my understanding is that they both are in support of mine. Oh, interesting. She understands. I know we said Alex Sachs was in support of it. I don't know if she understood that Jamie was in support of it. That I think she probably knows otherwise. It says I have a note from Alex attached below, along with 16 other department heads, and Jamie, if asked, I'm sure would confirm the work I did. She is cleverly not saying he will write a letter of recommendation, even though they had to in the end. She's just saying he can confirm the work I did. So much has changed since they filed for their tag. The most significant thing being that the cut of the film that was selected to be released is my cut, which I'll lay out in more detail later, but I imagine you appreciate the gravity of that advancement alone. Okay, remember me talking about that being both the biggest overstep that she made on Justin's rights, but it also, I mentioned back then that it also was a big key final step in her being able to claim producer status. And yes, when we read this letter, we can see where she used it heavily. Okay. And who allowed that? Well, we know who allowed that. Josh Greenstein, subject of another episode. Well, actually, he'll be a subject of a whole episode soon, I think. Okay, as not to get bogged down in the why now details, I'll focus on the facts of the work. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to try and skim some stuff. Okay, development, pre-production. So yes, you need to be involved in development and pre-production. I love everyone claiming involvement in development when it was Justin and Jamie that were involved in development for 5 years. And it always ticks me off as someone who's done that from the very start of productions. That's the tough part, getting to the point of actually getting it financed and made and into a script and stuff. And then you get these people that jump on at the end and somehow get like equal credit even as producers who aren't taking any risk. And can you tell I've been burned by this before in terms, yeah. So they don't take any risk on really developing this whole thing and, have a script to work from. But anyhow, they do all chime in then later on the script, but it's when you compare the matter of a few months compared to all those years and no risk, it's completely different. Anyway, okay, so she says, I led the location shift from Boston to New Jersey and helped to solve all cost and schedule logistics associated. Well, yeah, there wouldn't be any cost and schedule logistics associated if she hadn't led the locations shift. Interesting. She sounds like the Piper leading her troops. Okay, she says, I personally called and or wrote emails to crew and put forth names for department head roles. Okay, including hair, makeup, director, photography, costume design, transportation, security, camera operators, etc. Well, hair, makeup, and costume design, especially hair and makeup stars always want their own hair and makeup people. Particularly at a certain stature, it's just normal. So I don't think it's like they were searching and couldn't find anyone and needed her help. I think she just demanded who she wanted. And they probably also cost a heck of a lot more than what they initially budgeted for this movie. But hey, it would be standard for her to get her own hair and makeup people. I don't know about the DP, and obviously we know she got her own costume design people. Transportation, I don't know. Okay, let's go on. We know she wanted security. I identified and onboarded freelance team members for the cast members, not just myself, to help achieve goals for the screen, including a fitness trainer, nutritionist, meal prep service, spray tanner. Sorry, certain things make me laugh because I understand how absurd this sounds compared to other industries. Wig maker, hair colorist, etc. I would argue that a lot of people weren't that fond of the wigs. Oh, sorry, I'm doing this with my mouse again. I don't think the wig was a big hit. And the fitness trainer, nutritionist part is just pretty darn funny, as we know all the stories that got associated with that. I reviewed and reshaped the creative of the production design for all key locations for all characters. Also made changes to use existing elements of locations to save cost. Okay. Flowers. I'm sure she had lots of opinions. This is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't know. She might have had valuable contributions. Again, I'm not about to spend a lot of time on a lot of these things. And keep in mind the overall issue of how much was any of this wanted. I think Justin was kind in giving her credit for some of the things that she did contribute. So I will do that too. Again, maybe it helped quality. Don't kill me for saying that. Who knows? I'm not saying it did. Okay. And yeah, locations. We're going to skip some of this because I think you all know what locations are and production design is. She's got, I reviewed and reshaped the creative of the costume design for all characters. Well, that's a pretty funny one because, and I will get into this on other episodes in my big backlog of stuff I have been wanting to talk about. But, you know, really this famous backlash that she received online started with the costume design. So I don't know. But, you know, Producers Guild of America isn't reading this thinking no one liked the costumes or any of that kind of stuff. They're just saying, were you involved in this film? In terms of PGA letter, they're not assessing quality at this point of these contributions. I called in favors with fashion contacts to get items loaned, discounted, or gifted to save costume design costs. We all know that is hugely laughable about how they went over budget on so much of it. So, you know, maybe you saved a few dollars somewhere and got some things loaned. And she did talk a lot about her own wardrobe that she used, but we also know how much over budget they went. And a lot of these things, and I cannot stress this part enough. You know, producing involves trying to worry about logistics and saving costs while maintaining creative vision and value. And so she brings up saving costs a lot, and it just really irks me because the whole thing I thought when I read these when I first read Wayfarer's filing on the production is how much this stuff cost the production. And these are big ticket items. Well, moving it for one thing, and talking about wardrobe, making them come to her home with wardrobe. This isn't, you know, they were all on a tight schedule, and she asked them to change all the wardrobe for one thing. So they're on extra time crunch. This isn't some huge budget production. And so the poor costume department is having to reshop for her and then take it all to her place and drag it on back. Like, that's what you do as an entitled starlet who's trying to be difficult, not as a producer. So she didn't include that part here. And I mean, all of the stuff, I might as well say this now, but, you know, holding up production for complaints that could have probably been And there's a point where it was like coming back from the strikes. It was like, oh, sorry, I've gone to England. It's like, well, that was completely irresponsible, holding everyone up from being able to continue as soon as they get back from the strikes. Like, those are huge, big budget items. So just as a producer, that part pisses me off. Okay. I could list a million things of where she cost a lot. And yet, it is a big part of justification, and even some of the crew, when they file their letters, talk about how she saved. And maybe she did save some days in production. We'll get into that. And obviously the Producers Guild letter isn't going to say. Unfortunately, I cost the production this amount. I did outreach to florists all over Instagram. Yippee-ki-yay. I went through hundreds of casting tapes to help find the rest of the cast. Okay, I rewrote the script to improve the role of Jenny Bloom after 3 actresses turned it down. Oh, sorry, I haven't gone back to the part where you get to read this too. We're not stopping again. I rewrote the script to improve the role of Jenny Bloom. It's interesting. Okay, those are tweaks you can make to a script, but boy, it gets confusing on films, people making changes to the script versus the writer. But we won't get into the writing thing right now. Okay, she talks about putting forth the person to play Jenny Bloom. She worked alongside as her agents to put forth names for Atlas. I screen tested with all options for Atlas. Well, yes, you would, as the actress. We offered the role to our original choice, Brandon Sklenar, who then turned it down. So I had my team get involved in convincing him to do it. I wrote him a personal letter as well. He accepted the role. And that has turned out very well for him, hasn't it? Because who knows? That's one of those people that we tend to feel like could see the benefit for himself of her and Ryan's connections, which actually, whatever, you're an actor, you're going to go with those. You would want that kind of exposure. And it's turned out okay for him, but he didn't prove to have much of a backbone, in my opinion. I then did significant rewrites of the script to incorporate all the notes of the cast, studio, distributor, author, director, and myself, since our writer was not available at that time because she was on another job. You know, that is where the WGA might care about this. And but again, this wouldn't be the concern of the Producers Guild in terms of giving her producer credit. And also all the notes of the cast, studio, distributor, I mean, that's just a mess. And I don't know, it sounds like they all just came to her and asked her to fix the script, which wasn't really the case. I also addressed scheduling, financial, location, weather, and other logistical constraints in that rewrite. Okay, that's valuable if you actually do that as a producer, because that is a role that I know I've tried to help with and have some value for in productions we've done. You know, being able to figure out what matters and what doesn't matter. Sorry about that noise. Do you want to know who that is? This little munchkin now has a new little bench beside me to try and keep her happy while I record. But she's scratching at it right now. But hopefully that'll keep her quiet. Okay, Ellis, you can leave it now. Sorry, guys. Hopefully it'll end. I think she gave up. Okay. As I was saying, yes, personally, that is one part of producing that I actually really liked and I think is a valuable role. So yeah, it's a nice challenge to keep what you need to keep a tight schedule and maintain the best quality and creative you can, and the vision that really matters, and the stuff you can change around that doesn't matter so much. So I don't know. Who knows? It's not like others weren't doing the same thing though either. And okay, on this production, I pushed the studio distributor and director to change the rating of the film from an R rating to a PG-13 because there was a significantly bigger market opportunity. Yeah, that was smart of them to change that. What I would argue with here, and I did mention this in my last episode on Colleen, which I still owe you my follow-up on the other side of it, and I did get backlash of anyone. I think people thought I wasn't angry enough at her, but that wasn't really the point of some things. I was mostly on that particular thing trying to keep facts straight on oh, I better not get into this because then I'll just get in trouble again. But I do find it important as people who are critical of legacy media and mainstream media to try and also be accurate in our reporting here. And I had noticed some things that were being positioned not quite accurately. And also, as I mentioned, there may have been some revisionist history in Colleen's recollection. But yeah, I think in that one I was mostly just pointing out that she and Blake might have not been in touch as much early on as I thought. And also there had been these rumors of them stealing the film and her being part of stealing the film to take it to Book Bonanza. Anyway, okay. So back to the PG-13. Oh yes, so what I was mentioning there is that, Colleen is the one too who also from way earlier, I think, thought it should be not R-rated. And yeah, actually, there is a lot more to talk about with ratings and stuff, but I don't know that we're going to do that now. Production, I constantly broke schedule and budget in pre-production and then daily and hourly during production. I don't know. It's just making me laugh. It is important. Okay, breaking schedule and budget. That's where you're breaking down what scenes are being shot on what days. That's what the ADs do. And they work with, your production manager and director, and everybody's deciding how much, things are going to cost once you schedule it all. And there's everything, how you break it down, which scenes on which days and how many days you're at certain locations based on the script the way it is now. And do you need to make any changes based on that and get more done on one day somewhere and less on another? Some locations cost more. There's so many logistics, and it changes daily because sometimes something happens in the day. But there's a whole bunch of people that would have been working on that, and maybe, I don't know, maybe she had some creative suggestions and ideas. But anyway, I think the thing to keep in mind in all of this is that there are other people doing all these things. And, I think even there's another phrase that I probably should be careful about using is to be fair to Blake. I think for people in the industry, or at least for the Producers Guild, they wouldn't really be assuming that she did it all alone. My main issue here is not that she can't be saying, I was involved in these things. I think we'd all feel better if it did say things like that, like I was involved. But she's just, I guess, trying to prove all the different things she had a hand in. And yeah. I unfortunately was responsible for the firing of our first AD, Julie, as we were not making our days for the first many weeks, and I had 20 years of experience to see that the days were not boarded well enough from the get-go, and her experience was not appropriate for the film we were making. Okay, this is actually one of the major issues. Okay, so firing the first AD because you weren't making your days. Here's where, how do I want to say this? But yeah, so this is what, when I first read Alex Saks' deposition, it was the first time I heard her complaining about, the first time I'd heard mentioned, because it was the first time we're reading all this stuff, is her mention like an experience on set, and that they weren't making the days. And remember when she was saying, I think we need to get rid of the, not have Jamie on set and get rid of the director. And Ange Giannetti was saying, well, not going to happen. They own the production and he's our director. Well, not making your days is a serious issue. And what that means is, like I say, you've scheduled, or they call boarding it, all the scenes to be shot that day. That's what's on the call sheet. And if you're not getting all those scenes in the day within the time you have, it's a big issue if that continues. Often there's, days you don't and other days you do. And you can tell if it's looking like it's going to be a problem. And but what I will say is that, first of all, this is what ticks me off. I don't know. None of us know if they were making their days or not. It's because we don't see what you see at the end of every day is there's going to be a production report. Sorry, the word left me. It's been a few years and I have my adult brain. But so there'd be a production report at the end of every day that tells you exactly any scenes you missed, any overtime, any of that kind of stuff, right? So I don't know. It would be a concern if you're not making your days and you'd want to do something about it. And that's where, but there's a lot of ways of dealing with that. It doesn't mean it's all on the first AD's head. And I was also thinking, like, Alex Saks saw herself as being capable of running the set on her own. So I'm thinking, like, well, if you're such a strong producer, like, couldn't there have been ways to step in and try to correct that and find the source of it first, rather than just being like, okay, yeah, just fire everybody? Like, because part of producing is like finding those issues and trying to correct them. So I don't know. Plus, we don't know if it was a real issue. And yeah, I do have thoughts on what may have gone down, in terms of if there's a little bit of an experience on this type of scale of production, and knowing how kind of touchy-feely Justin and Jamie are, and when you're being all collaborative, and also for a director who's maybe used to, doing a little bit more by the seat of the pants, or feeling really attached to every single scene, and having trouble knowing when enough is enough and keeping track of all that. So I'm not phrasing that all super well, but I can imagine some of that. And again, that's where you just, like, it's totally workable to all work together, and you do things. You can look at hard facts at the end of the day, and what are we covering and not covering. And because yes, costs get out of control, and if if you're not making your days. And each time you don't make your day, you have to find out how to reschedule it. Sometimes you're leaving that location. Sometimes it means cutting stuff. So you're doing it. But I don't know. It's an ongoing thing that you keep track of during production. I guess to say it's hourly is, I don't know. It's just kind of an ongoing thing. It's not like they all stopped and said each hour, ding, 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 Blake, please sit down and help us figure out where we're at. So, yeah. And I know Alex in her deposition said, yeah, Julie just wasn't used to this type of production and wasn't cut out for it. And I'm not going to get into her credits or not credits. Like I say, the bigger issue here is there's no evidence that it was a problem, and why not, if it was, I don't see evidence that they were trying to fix it. And we don't see this Sony complaining about that. You know, these documents aren't about that, so we just don't get to see it. But I wanted to see it because then I would have answers to those questions. Okay, I flagged security risks and pushed to execute getting the entire crew badges. I'd never been on a set without them, yet they were not put in place for this production. That seems like a whole lot of explanation over a minor thing. I've never seen such a thing. This sounds more like trying to put down other people. We were having breaches where fans were filming our monitors and uploading the scenes to TikTok because no one knew who was crew and who wasn't. And those darn scenes that got uploaded to TikTok showed my wardrobe that everyone made fun of. And in fact, you know, I knew very little about this production forever, not until the lawsuit came out. And there was only like one or two things I remembered hearing about at the time, being out of the industry at the time and caring about other things a lot more. But I do remember seeing pictures of her wardrobe from set somehow around that time. And you know what I thought was, I guess she's an actress wanting to take on one of those meaty roles to prove her acting chops or something, where she plays, you know, some eccentric person, you know, she wants to get out of that whole ingenue beauty thing. Speaking of Oscars, I'm thinking, she's trying to just show her chops at you know, playing the non-attractive character. Okay. She had the production name changed to an alias, paparazzi leaks, blah, blah. I helped to block the staging of every scene for shooting efficiency, oftentimes asking to block the night before so the crew could pre-light without wasting the time of pulling the cast from hair and makeup to rehearse. Blocking is just where you walk through where this where the movement's going to be, where the camera's going to be, where the lighting's going to be for that particular scene. And they figured that all out so that then the actors can go off and do all their hair and makeup and all that kind of stuff and get in the correct wardrobe while the crew is setting up for that lighting. Although there's also stand-ins for some of that, but they have to work out the blocking of the scenes with the director, so they know, you know, how they're planning to move and who's doing what where. And then the stand-ins go and stand there so that the crew can light it while the actors are in their hair and makeup and wardrobe trailers, getting hair and makeup and their costumes on. When we came back after the strikes, I was writing, as we were shooting to meet real-time hurdles and demands with regard to schedule, budget, and creative needs. Okay, again, I'd really like to know what these hurdles were and where they stood and how the production was, just for my own evaluation of whether there was any real need for any of this. I mean, it just raised that question to me. I really wanted to see facts about all of this, and unfortunately, we don't get to. Not that anyone who's involved in producing isn't kind of dealing with those things all along the way. So, and Justin was collaborative, and so was Jamey. I'm sure they were appreciative of any help from anyone. Well, not anyone. That's a disaster, getting everyone weighing in. But in terms of someone like her who's has been on a million sets and different challenges with making up time and shots and shortcuts, that's where people who do have that experience, it's nice if they chime in, and actors can do that. It's ultimately the director's decision. And just distracted how much to talk about Alex Saks here. Okay, guys, bear with me. We'll just keep going and cover some of this. I reviewed and instated COVID protocols when we had an outbreak and lost many key crew members. She just asked for what you're allowed to do as an actor. I managed the politics and HR concerns on a daily basis, acting as an intermediary to keep crew and cast engaged, safe, and on board. Okay, this is kind of the biggie that's caused a lot of alarm bells to go off. Yeah, this is problematic for her, I would think. As we know, here's the crunch of all of this. I know that legally, here's the crunch, the legal part. I know that part of the legal concerns are how much control she had, whether she's an employee or not, and I am very curious to hear what the judge has to say about that. Because there's a couple things, and again, it's just like I wanted to position them accurately, and that is, for sure, it's just bizarre. And I did mention this in another one, like managing the HR concerns on a daily basis was just so funny for all these claims about not having somewhere to go for HR. I guess, Alex was trying to dance around it not being clear where to go for HR, and certainly Blake was saying that, and then there's all the battles with Sony about whether they told her to go away and talk to Wayfarer because they're the production company. And we can get into those details ad nauseum that go around in circles, but I just think it's funny that she bothered to put this here, because she did set herself up and probably wishes she hadn't put it there, because no one would normally really be asking about this or care. And although, if you are the producer, mostly if you're the production company, you need to be concerned that there are HR protocols in place and connections. And they did have HR training. Like, remember Alex went on about, I got them to use Sony's protocol. So everyone can fight about whether she had somewhere to go for HR, but according to this letter, she managed it. So that is a bit of a problem. Also, the issue of being an employee or not, I just wanted to, while we're here, sorry, my back's wacky, so I get myself distracted trying to straighten up. Sorry, it just is always that way. The issue of whether she's an employee or not, by working through a loan out, I don't see how that's going to change anything. And if it does, that does change a lot in the industry, and it's not just actors. So I just wanted to make sure that's everyone understands that part when we're all weighing in. And I know there's so many clever people here who want to know these details, and so yeah, I'm curious. I'd love to speak with some of the lawyers in more depth on this, from just the legal side, but from the production side of what's normal is that lots of people on the production will be working through low notes. Alex Saks would have been, and she's a producer as well. And does that mean she didn't have protections? And there'd be lots of different crew members who would be. And for anyone into the nerding out on all of that, and like I say, I could go through it with one of the lawyers of why it's, for one thing, why there's the independent production companies for each of these productions, and then how I've seen it treated so far with individuals and whether they're employees or not, and those rulings. Yeah, there's lots of things I'd love to get more in depth with and collaborate with a couple of the lawyers that I admire watching here who help explain lots of the litigation stuff, so I'm gradually understanding that. I do have a lot of background in the entertainment law side of it because you have to kind of know a bunch, and even the whole issue of whether a contract is signed or not. It's not that uncommon for them to remain unsigned for a long time, and I've been part of a pretty big lawsuit where that was the main issue, and yeah, can't get into that now though, and I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but okay. Now she talks about shot listing with the director, DP, and first AD, not usually all at once, and just when it was asked of me. And then she talks about it being round 2 of the film, how she spoke to our first AD, Chris Sargent, every night for nearly an hour on my drive home. And once I arrived home to assess and rework our schedule to help make our days, which we were struggling to make. There's that making the days thing again. And like I say, that is a critical thing that I really want to get to the bottom of, whether or not they were in fact making their days. She says, I was able to admit 3+ days of shooting via rethinking the schedule, changeovers, location, stunts, weather, and adapting the script to accommodate. Okay, I'd like to see that. That's just me wanting to see exactly how that was done. Not that it's impossible, but I was really curious. I want facts about all of this, and I guess it's just not part of this case. But I want to know how I feel. I know I feel that no one wanted her doing all of this. And I also want to say that it's possible she might have had some valuable contributions if I could only see what they were. And but on the whole, absolutely, because it's only because you're not going to see me rage baiting about every single thing a person does is horrible. I'm not going to do it. I'm so tired of all the anger in the world. But I am extremely angry for the way she went about this. Yeah, this is, I was a little discouraged for a bit in between at just constantly everything having to go to 11 in honor of Rob Reiner, on every single thing she did or touched is horrible. I'm here to talk about production and what people do, and it's possible that she had some valuable contributions. I just, it doesn't balance against the horror of this lawsuit and what it has done to innocent people, in my opinion, allegedly, based on what we've seen. And I just want to be clear that if I'm ever saying maybe she contributed here or there. It's not a case of defending Blake against any of the horrors of this lawsuit and how unjust I feel it was, and how mean and just despicable to allege some of these things. And in my opinion, allegedly, based on what I've read, that carry no weight with especially those SH allegations. Well, all of it. So, yes, I'm angry about all of that. Just sometimes can't quite have all the rage about everything. And as someone with production experience, I'm just trying to explain some of that stuff here. Yeah, when it comes to when they took on Todd Black after that break, I think he was probably the experienced producer they needed to begin with. And Alex got kind of protected in getting to stick around, in my opinion. But there's more on her for another time. So, okay, I've lost track of where we are, and we're pretending this is live at this point, so it's messy, but I'm getting it to you. Okay. Oh yeah, so she was talking about shot listing with everybody. Again, that's, figuring out your day, critical stuff. I was feeling sorry for the first AD, Chris Sargent, with her phoning and talking for an hour. Here, I just picture, here's the scenario of how this works. It's Blake's being driven home, and she's in the car with a commute and nothing else to do. Now, to be fair, that phrase that gets me in trouble, but to be fair, she could be just napping, and probably there's lots of people that would have preferred that she did. It's what's really sad through all of this is that she's not talking to Justin more. You don't see that in a lot of this letter. She talks about all the things she did, independently with everybody. And although she does say, what does she say? Oh yeah, I was the director's partner in all creative and logistical concerns, helping to execute the best outcome for the film. I would push back when needed. I would support when needed. The film is and was always my top priority. Okay, here's the thing. It depends how you consider the film is and was always my top priority. She can say the film is her top priority, and that, anyone could say that, and you should say that in some ways, say that about whatever your job is on set. Like, whatever you're supposed to be doing in your workplace should be your top priority. I just think that, deciding what that role entailed is the problem here. And I don't doubt she wanted the film to be good. And I've noticed a lot, this is another thing that jumps out a lot to me, is Ryan's interviews. He talks about, you're the one on screen and you're the one taking the blame if it's a bad movie. And I noticed that in one of her interviews, and I can't find those videos for you right now because that takes me another 6 hours of screwing up trying to show them. But so they have this bee in their bonnet about, you're the one that takes the hit as the actor if it doesn't turn out well. Well, now Ryan has been around, and in some ways, we found out how difficult he is. Again, another topic, but I can see Blake taking that on too. But that's, again, I guess why you want to produce or direct, is so you can have more say. And it doesn't mean you're entitled to walk into every film you sign on for and decide that well, I'm the one whose reputation is going to be hurt because I'm the one on screen. I mean, Justin's on screen too. Um, and use that as your justification for trying to change everything. The thing about producing is recognizing whose strengths are there, whose strengths are what, and helping to get the most out of those strengths. And that goes for all of it, not pretending that you know best about everything. And I think the craziest part of all of this was back to I was the director's partner in all creative and logistical concerns, helping to execute the best outcome for the film. I would push back when needed. I would support when needed. Well, yeah. Just, I would support when needed. Wow. I would like to see some examples of that. I think, yes, that is exactly how you would like to see things go. That's how a collaborative set and collaboration between people who are taking their job seriously and professionals and know the meaning of the word collaboration. And I think from the outset to say that I'm so angry I can't see straight. Oh, I would support when needed. I would say there's probably a lot of times of support was needed that was not offered. In fact, a lot of times, in my opinion, being the one causing the problems to begin with. And therein lies the problem with most of this. We are going to cover more of this another time. Yeah, we need to, I'm trying to stick to my goal of just getting you things. But, and also the post is what was coming up next. And I did talk a bit about that before when we were talking directing, the breach of, I'll link that if I figure out how to do that. So there's a lot of posts there. Marketing, I actually want to do a separate episode on because, yeah, that's really interesting. And, but yeah, this is, and then we've got some of those letters that people wrote. There's a bit of intrigue there. That'll be just a quickie some other time. So yeah. Thank you for sticking it out with me again. And yeah, it's a work in progress. I would love it if you felt like subscribing or checking to see if you're subscribed. And I'd love it if you could if that's how it goes. And yeah, I'd love to also just do a whole bunch of questions and answers. And that way I can address some things. I think some questions have been submitted. And again, hopefully maybe do a live if someone helps me set it up to do just that. We'll see. But thank you for joining me today. And we'll see you as soon as possible. Hopefully this week I'll be seeing you a lot. And I'm looking forward to hearing what the judge has to say. I'm sure everyone is. And take care. See you soon.